with that, that's enough from my end. And yeah, I'll let you hear from the stars of this session, which are the Latitud founders. First of all, we have Fernando Ribeiro, a dear friend. Fernando was working at Bridgewater Associates in Boston a couple of years ago. He did the fellowship, he explored ideas, and then finally he came back to Brazil, building a health tech with very deep impact in the Brazilian healthcare ecosystem. We're lucky to be an early investor, and yeah, he'll tell you a bit more about the thesis he's building. Fer, please come on stage.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Latitud team. It's a pleasure to be here and share a little bit of how we're rethinking healthcare. So we start off by actually just recognizing the problem, right? That Brazilian healthcare is broken. And, we start off by something that's very established, which is healthcare in Brazil is extremely desirable. It's consistently ranked amongst the top 3 most desired goods or services between Brazilians. And in fact, 61% of people would actually change jobs just to have access to better private healthcare. And unfortunately, this is inaccessible to roughly 80% of the population. So 150 million people desperately want but can't access healthcare. And then the question is why? Essentially because it's expensive, and it's very expensive. So much so that, in fact, the bulk of the market is employer-sponsored programs who are footing this multi-billion-dollar bill and see these costs increasing year over year, and, which has quickly climbed to the second highest expense for companies after payroll, and this cost only increases 18% year over year, outpacing inflation by 3 times. And unfortunately, we don't see the same kind of impact in quality. Outcomes aren't improving. Brazil is actually lagging and amongst the worst countries when it comes to quality by the World Health Organization. So why does this happen? Essentially because of misaligned incentives. So Brazil, we are unfortunately in the business of treating diseases and not preventing them. And essentially, we are rewarding providers, hospitals, doctors to push on more necessary treatment onto people who most of the times are uninformed or unwilling. And as a function of this, we beg the question, how can we actually make healthcare better, affordable, and more accessible? And that's the question that drives me, my co-founder Will, Dr. Chris, and our brilliant team of folks who are working at the intersection of product, engineering, medicine, and data, and who are also backed by, I think, one of the best groups of investors in the world, including Founders Fund, General Catalyst, Picus, Latitud, and Norte. And we started out by asking ourselves, hey, what actually determines cost and quality of a patient journey? And started by looking at the data, right? We analyzed 2 billion reais in claims data, 70,000 lives over 10 years. And what do we find out? That the single most important variable in determining both cost and quality is the physician. And the best physicians, they not only generate the best outcomes, but they're also 30% cheaper than the average physician. I know, this is like a powerful, profound insight, right? Yet, in Brazil, we have more information on our Uber drivers than we do on our surgeons. And that's where Alinea steps in. So our mission is to radically reduce healthcare costs while we also radically improve outcomes to our employees and our members. More specifically, so we partner with employers who offer private healthcare to their employees, and then we help that patient navigate through their healthcare journeys. What does that look like? Essentially, we empower them with a personal care team where they can have access to unlimited appointments with no copay, no costs. Second, we just eliminate friction from the process. So they have access to our virtual concierge team where they can book appointments, procedures, tests, anything they need with a click of a button. And lastly, if and when people need to look for a specialist, we have proprietary tech and algorithms to identify who are the best performing physicians who are close to your home and available when you need them. And that's only half of the equation. The other half is how we service our employers. And essentially, we deliver on the promise of reducing costs by eliminating waste and fraud. We empower them with a healthier and more productive staff. And lastly, we have a data-driven approach where we can empower them to have data to make informed decision-making. And this is, I think, landing this message. This is what a typical employer experiences. So every month, they see their healthcare costs rise until they hit an inflection point, which is when they partner with Alinea. And then they see a new unprecedented turn in costs and unprecedented employee satisfaction. And going beyond just costs, I'm incredibly proud here of my team, who have outpaced our US benchmarks at every important dimension by up to 6-fold. And then now we come back full circle into this question, how can we make healthcare better, affordable, and more accessible? We start off by making healthcare better. So by delivering better care, leaning into the best physicians, leveraging data, we can actually reduce waste and fraud. And by doing so, we can reduce premiums by 20 to 40%, making it more affordable. And then lastly, we can make that, and by reducing costs, we can make it accessible to roughly 150 million Brazilians who desperately want but can't afford private health care. If you're interested in learning more, please swing by our stand or visit us. It'll be a pleasure to one day service you guys too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Amazing presentation. Thank you so much for joining us.